Bhavan yourself. Yeah. And here is the verse for today. Canto 10, chapter 85, Lord Krishna instructs Vasudeva. Text 7. The glow of the moon, the brilliance of fire, the radiance of the sun, the twinkling of the stars, the flash of lightning, the permanence of mountains, and the aroma and sustaining power of the earth. All of these are actually you. The glow of the moon, the brilliance of fire, the radiance of the sun, the twinkling of the stars, the flash of lightning, the permanence of mountains, and the aroma and sustaining power of the earth. All these are actually you. Okay. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktimarga Swami, Prabhupada's disciples, followers, etc. Shri Vasudeva, in telling Krishna that he is the essence of the sun, moon, stars, lightning, and fire, is only reiterating the opinion of Scripture, both Shruti and Smriti. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6:14, for example, states, Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto, banti kuto yang agnihi, tam eva bantam, anubhati sarvam, tasya basa sarvam idang vibhati. There in the spiritual sky, the sun does not shine, nor does the moon, the stars or lightning as we know them. But to speak of ordinary fire, it is by the reflection of the spiritual sky's effulgence that everything else gives light. And thus, through its radiance, the entire universe becomes luminous. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam 15:12, the Lord states, Supreme Lord says, Yad aditjagatam tejo jagat vasayate kilam yas chandramasi yas chagnau tat tejo vidi mamukam. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire also come from me. Namo Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarine Hare Krishna. Okay, so the realizations that are expressed by Vasudeva are very astounding and they're very profound. And what he's saying today is that whatever is of brilliance that we see in the world, and including the mountains, and the aroma, the fragrance, Krishna says the fragrance of the earth, this is all coming from Krishna, who's allowing an emission of light, and it's that light that Brahmajyoti is what we usually refer to, is just being reflected on these different objects that are mentioned. One thing that is for sure is that nature is being presented here, and it is Krishna's nature. Just like if we talk about Dharmaprana, he has a certain nature. That's Dharmaprana's nature. And then Arkamari has a certain nature, anybody in this room. Sometimes we say the nature of the beast, and reference to the way the world is, to do with weather or politics or social interactions with people. That's the way of the beast, nature of the beast. So this world that we are so familiar with, and which we're very much enjoying in this time of the year, are, they are Krishna. It's his energy. It's the glow of the moon. And we could take a verse from Bhagavad Gita. Rasa hamab sikuntiya, prabhasmi pasashishuryo, pranava sarvavedishu, shabdaki purusham drishu. Want to give us that one? Rasa ham. Rasa means taste. Apsu refers to water. I am the taste of water, especially sparkling water. Actually, when I took a shower today, I usually put on lukewarm and then I finish it off with like ice cold, like Ontario water. And it just so happened there's so many chemicals were coming out of that. When the cold came on, I never experienced it before. So we're not talking about that kind of water, chemical water. We're talking about the real stuff, the real tasty water. And that is Krishna. I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and moon. Krishna says, Prabhasmi Suryo. Suryo refers to the sun and moon. Brahmasmi Shashi. This light is actually Krishna. And we know it's like if there's the sun is very strong, you feel Krishna's presence. And the story of Hanuman, he was just a little young person at the time, and he saw the sun. He liked oranges. He loved oranges. He saw the sun, said, "Well, that's a big orange. I'm going to go and get it." So he flew in the air because he's the son of the wind god. He's able to fly, and he was chasing after the sun. That sun and the sunshine is Krishna, and also the moon and the moonshine. That is Krishna. Of course, when we say moonshine, that has other implications, right? Moonshine. Everybody knows what that means, right? But the moon shining, especially in a full moon, Krishna's presence can be felt. People's minds get very affected on that full moon. But to speak of coyotes, wolves, and other wild dogs. Do you want to give us that verse? Where is it found?
It's in the 7th chapter. I thought it was in the 10th.
7th chapter. Good. And do you want to give us the translation? No?
O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantra. I am the sound in ether and ability in man.
The sound of ether and the ability in man. So, especially the last piece, Shabdake Parashamdarishu. Whatever talents we have, we must give credit to Krishna. We cannot take it. We're borrowing it, that's all. We not carry it with us throughout this life. Sometimes we may not necessarily be able to put in our luggage and carry us through to the next life. People do lose their luggage when they travel. It does get lost. Oh yeah. That's hell, especially when you're going to India and trying to retrieve your stuff. Everything's getting a little better that way. So whatever skills we have, whatever talents we have, we must see it as Krishna's emanation. It's him. And sometimes these lines of, what we say here, that is Krishna. It may sound a little bit of Mayavad overtones, but it's not actually so. These are all Krishna's emanations, and it is good as, we should see it all as him. A Krishna conscious person sees it everywhere Krishna can be seen. The sun is the eye of God. The moon is the other eye of God. It's so nice to see it that way. Many traditions prior to the development of the religions of the Midwest, like practically everybody, all over the planet, they believe this sort of like, what do you call it, pantheistic look at life, that all that's there, all that's that natural energy there, that is God. And in many Celtic traditions, they worship trees because trees meant so much to them and everything. This whole idea of a Christmas tree, started with the Celtic tradition, they honored trees and decorated a little bit. And because, it became part of the Christian or Christmas tradition. When Christ was around, and when he was there were no Christmas trees there with Christmas lights all lit up. Just these cultures kind of merged together. And also before Islam shaped itself in the Midwest, people were worshiping fire and the sun. So they say God through these elements, and Zoroastrianism has much to do with fire worship. Our temple in Montreal was run by Zoroastrians. They had owned it before, and we bought it from them. And so the people have also seen divinity in in elements, but I think it would be fair to say that in the Midwest traditions, God is identified as a person. Not much is known about that person. A very powerful person with intelligence, and everything else is very much inferior. Of course, we can also endorse that to some degree, but we do not want to belittle anything that exists in this material world, nor do we want to say that animals have no souls. By saying that, you justify, the slaughter of animals and eating them. Well, after all, they don't have a soul. And at one point it was said that only humans have souls. Another point it was said only certain people have souls. Only white people have souls, or something, like those kind of things. So this is where black matters, I guess. So these philosophies are interesting, and they're not very consistent with the Vedic conclusion, our Siddhanta. Our Siddhanta states that Krishna is in everything and is in everyone. And here's the logic that Prabhupada used for us. He said, okay, we eat, we sleep, we mate, we defend. Animals do the same things. What it really is the difference? Because of these four particular features of action, we can conclude that there's incredible parallels between us and other life forms. The difference, however, is that humans are considered to have an advantage in that they can cultivate their spiritual self, whereas animals are, let's say, habituated to these four principles, proclivities or tendencies. Prabhupada uses those terms. And sometimes I think, humans, because they're so complicated and complex, and they can go from, you can meet people that are very saintly and really sweet and wonderful and kind. They've got all the etiquette down, very sensitive, conscientious, and so on. And then you meet totally the other opposite end of the stick. Like yesterday, when I was walking on last night, I was Sherbourne Street. And about halfway from Bloor to Wellesley, I met a woman. She looked sort of Polynesian by nature. Young woman, she looked kind of nice. And she said, oh, what religion do you belong to? And I said, Hare Krishna. Christian? I said, no, Krishna. So I find it's always good to have a card. Krishna has roots from India, related to Hinduism, bhakti, devotion to God. Oh yes, India. Oh, very good, very good. So while we were talking, there was, she seemed to have so many good qualities, like a goddess. She looked like a goddess, actually. And then some guy from the islands, he was like an Indian guy, actually. He just came and started speaking profanities to her, to me, and then even at one point he stuck his bum out to her. She started to run after him, like he was kind of thin and tall and scrawny, and and she was after him. then I felt kind of protective over her, because he continued on badgering her with words. And he said, oh man, you've really got a problem, get off of drugs. Then he turned towards me and he went after me. He left her alone. He kept going after me for about 3 blocks. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. My patience was really tested. But I saw like 2 spectrums here. I saw a very nice lady, curious, wanting to know. She was actually kind of strong and he was kind of scrawny. So she had many of the qualities of God, you know. And he was just showing all the low life, you know. I mean, he was yelling and screaming off the top of his lungs. Of course, that part of town, it's quite common, you know. It really is. Oh, boy. And every time I go there and meet devotees, the people come. There's a corner there at the library where I always run devotees. There's a whole bunch of them live out there. So anyways, humans are very elastic-like, you know, like an elastic band. You know, you get from very, very, you know, evolved human life to very devolved life. It seems to be like that, you know. And you know, I can say squarely that, and I'm sure you've all that experience. Some like, you know, very low, like lowly creatures, creepy crawlies, or you know, little small bugs, you know. They don't seem to have much intelligence, but who knows? They may have lots of brain power. When it comes to some humans, I mean, humans are way below some of these, you know, these creatures in terms of, you know, being advanced in some way. And speaking of that word advanced, when I first met devotees, it was Vishwakarma, it was Satyajit, it was Yojapati, Drupada, and Distadura. And they stayed in my place when I was having an apartment up north. And we were looking at a picture of Prabhupada, a nice picture of Prabhupada with his mouth wide open, smiling, hairs coming out of his ears, and he had big earlobes, you know, and eyes that go quite wide across. Everything was quite big about him, and it was a big close-up picture of him. And the devotees were saying, "Oh, we can't wait till we can be at his age." I was just a 20-year-old kid, and I was thinking, what are you talking about? I've never heard of anybody glorifying an old person. I was trying to understand, so they clarified it for me. Said, well, when we get that old, we believe that we'll be advanced. And that word advanced is like commonly used in Prabhupada's books. My advancement means, you know, to be a little bit forward, to be progressive and aggressive, and to hustle. And somebody who's an advanced, you know, program. I thought of all those connotations. When devotees are talking about advanced, they're talking about spiritual evolution, spiritual development. And so amongst humans, that in fact is the case. Why do you think there's 8,400,000 different kinds of humans? It's because the mentalities are so variegated. They're so different. You know, they're so different. And you can't just, like, if we talk about 400,000, out of 800,000, there's 400,000 human species, you know. So we would say, okay, there's the yellow species, the white species, the black species, brown species. What else? But actually it's all species, or let's say these divisions are measured by different levels of mentality and different cultural norms and things like that. It gets very complicated and very sophisticated. And the Bhagavatam does break it up. There's, you know, 1 million of these, like aquatics, 2 millions of this, you know, mammals, and so on. It breaks it all down when it comes to the 8,400,000. But if there's 400,000, you know, different divisions of humans, that would be very interesting. I remember Peter Burwash speaking at, it's now called Hot Docs. Does everybody know Hot Docs on Blue Street?
Yeah.
Where they say documentaries.
The one that was just renovated.
Yeah, it was renovated. So it's like a movie, an old movie theater. They show documentaries and everything. I believe that's where the Hare Krishna film was shown. I wasn't around at the time. I was traveling, walking across the U.S.
Me and Vijay saw it.
No,
That was nice.
good. Nice. So, Peter Burwash spoke, I get, maybe it was university, it was all about vegetarianism. He spoke a bit, and he was very impressive. All the seats were taken up. I remember him saying, there's 8,400,000 different species of life. So nobody raised an objection because scientists will give you a much larger figure. But anyways, it's a big figure. It's very impressive. And when you think about human beings, it is quite impressive. There are so many different kinds of just indigenous people, like in the state of Gujarat in India. There's so many different tribes, still like tribal people, eat lizards and all kinds of things. The Hindus are all upset because the Christians are converting them all to Christianity. They're trying to pass laws that you can't convert in India. So, but yeah, there's so many different tribes. You can see online, I think you can YouTube it, and there's these people, it's all filmed. They're from South America. They had never seen white people before. So there was a few guys that were walking through the bush. They came upon this tribe, and they're going like this, touching, so let any white come off, things like that. So I'm sure there's still a lot of those kind of people around. There's one island off the coast of India, and they made it very clear that no one they don't want anybody to come around. So there's one ship that was coming in, and they start to hurl coconuts at them. You get right out of here, and who can blame them? You leave our civilization alone. I go to Guyana every year, and Guyana is connected, has the Amazon running through it, southern shore. And the forests are very dense and very dangerous. They have those poisonous everything you can imagine, little frogs that And the devotees were going to take me, Maharaj, we have to take you to some island. And there's all these tribal people say, yeah, take me there. It'll remind me of the old Tarzan movies that we used to see. And but it never happened. So many different humans are there, so many different levels of mentality. And there's a lot of people that cannot relate to this, that cannot, understand what we're talking about here. They're just not interested. And there's a lot of people who just don't know how to read. Just don't know how to read. There's just not, it's not in their realm of experience. And read, well, if read at all, it has to be on a screen. What, you're giving me a book? What's this? I think the time will come, what is this? Some ancient relic, all brown and yellowed and smelling a bit, Whoa, what is this, Because, we'll all see just screens. And, everything will be available on the screens. There's one little comic strip where Moses is, looking at, he's looking at the, we call it the Ten Commandments, the tablets, and he's looking up at God and said, can I get that in, what did he say? Can I get a soft copy of that? So, anyways, it just goes to show that life is changing, people are changing. And if it's a glossy magazine, they'll look at it, But if it's a novel, reading, oh, gee, you want me to read this? Some people have trouble with reading just our little book. It's a book. Has anybody ever seen the film Black Robe? It's a Canadian film about when the Jesuits first came. And there's one particular scene where one of the Jesuits who's all in black with a big hat like this, and he's reading the Bible. So one indigenous person comes, and he's like a midget. He's like a shaman, or whatever you call it. And he's saying in the local language, "What is this?" He said, "It's a book." Book? What is book? Anyways, he takes a shaker, demon, demon, woo, woo. It made a little fun of the native folks, but the film obviously shows a clash between the two cultures. And the Jesuits had to go back to France, and New France. Things were a little bit too tough for them back in early 1600s. Anyways, so even our indigenous people, there were so many, we say First Nations. Why do we say First Nations people? Because there were so many different languages, so many different customs. It wasn't just Ojibwe.
Yeah, they were here.
It was just Iroquois. It wasn't just Mohawk culture or whatever it was, the 6 tribes around here. Yeah, there were so many, right across from coast to coast, so many. So therefore they were nations, and they were here first. They were here first. Now it's all merged to become one culture. What culture would you call this? What would you call it? Tim Hortons culture? Starbucks culture? Donut? Maybe a donut culture. Would that be appropriate? I mean, what is at the heart of people's lives these days? What do you think? I know we were not going to do everyone contributing class today, but I'm going to encourage something anyways. What can you call this culture anyways? Do you have any words for it? Dog eat dog? I'm sure there's different terms. Materialistic? Words? Anything? What would you call this world?
Asia Ranto. Changed the name of Toronto to Asia Ranto.
Asia Ranto, okay.
It's almost that now.
Any other ideas? Sorry, I'm just gonna... And this is not from Starbucks. Any thoughts? Okay, so then let me ask you, what do you think about all this stuff? I mean, Krishna's the taste of water. He's the taste of this drink.
Well, Krishna views all things with their qualities because all things come from him. So.
Right. And we mentioned the other day too that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke, he was a teacher, he was a pundit, known as Nimai Pandit. He had lots of students, he was just a teenager. He had lots of students already. He was expert in language, grammar. He got all of his students to identify with every word in Sanskrit related to Krishna somehow. He would not see a separate world from Krishna. Everything was Krishna for him. Everything's connected to him. A lot of people like to use that word connection. And I remember the first time I walked across Canada, it was somewhere in BC. And a young woman came over and she said, "Oh, I saw you earlier on. Is there any, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm walking across Canada for the spiritual healing of the nation." And she said, "Oh, that's wonderful. I saw you earlier." I was just kind of curious, so I'm just going out, I'm stopping the vehicle here, and I'm just going to connect with nature. She goes, she blows a kiss. So connecting is a very strong word. Is anybody following the Krishna connection? That gives you news about what's going on in ISKCON around the world, the Krishna connection. The word yoga means to connect with Krishna. and yoga, to yoke, to hook up your oxen or whatever your horses, whatever travel power you use, to hook them so that you can attach to it a cart, a wagon, or something that you can jump into. Yeah. So connection is very, very important. And Vasudeva is helping us to see the connection between Krishna and everything that is demonstrates luminosity, anything that glows, anything that shines. Krishna is responsible for. So it is said in the Bhagavad Gita also that the spiritual world is not illuminated by electricity or by sunlight or moonlight. It is self-sustaining. It's self-luminescent, you can say. It's self-powered. That's the statement from the Bhagavad Gita as well. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't get so detailed, but it says enough. If we want more information about the world that's beyond, whether it's the spiritual sky or the planets within the sky, then we read Srimad Bhagavatam. It's everything's there. The Bhagavad Gita is really like a philosophical, it's a dialogue to help somebody who's a little bit down in the dumps and to, evolve and to break out of that. If we're depressed, then we should read Bhagavad Gita and we will feel some enlightenment. And do you want to read one or two of the quotes in the back? You can read it nice and clear so everybody here can hear it.
In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. By Henry David Thoreau.
By Thoreau, right. So you're saying, he's saying that here in a group of transcendentalists, and also Einstein as well, they just recognize the power of the Bhagavad Gita and that it's like a universe that speaks to you. It's nothing puny, it's nothing small, like our world. We're having trouble on our planet, and some people are talking about, let's see what we can do on another planet. We're kind of making a mess of this one. We really want to tackle another one and destroy or disturb another place? I don't think so. Humans are dangerous. Well, do you want to give us another one?